now, happy vibes, my friends. Welcome back to my podcast, Vibes by Alicia, where I believe in spreading killer vibes that light you up and give you that kick in the ass to craft the life you wish to live. This sacred space is dedicated to the lovers of all things business, travel, and lifestyle. Hey, it's about time you get the scoop on the latest vibes. So let's get to it. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen into the podcast. Today, I'm really excited to bring you a guest with a very unique perspective on relationships and friendships. So it's both, right? Relationships and friendships. And so her name is Sheri Jacobs. Welcome, Sheri.
Thank you, Alicia.
And she's the author of The Friendship Diet, Clean Out Your Fridge, Get Real, and Fill Your Life with Meaningful Relationships That Last. I like that. It's a nice, big, long title.
Yes. Lots of food for thought.
Yeah, I like it.
Open the book.
I like it. My guest, Sheri Jacobs, is the author of The Friendship Diet. She shines a light on the reasons why people often feel unfulfilled in their intimate relationships and how to practice proper care and feeding of those connections. No one wants to suffer the consequences of empty calories. And we hear those empty calories all the time, by the way, Sheri. I hear them all the time because I'm with a doctor now and we talk about my nutrition. I'm like, oh, I can't do empty calories. And you say it's not good for your relationships either.
No, absolutely not. We tend to not want to buy the nutritional foods when we go to the supermarket and we're starving, right?
Yeah.
So what do the doctors tell us? What do the nutritionists tell us? They say, never go to a supermarket on an empty stomach because you're going to pick those empty calories. So one of my chapters is a well-stocked fridge will help keep your knickers on.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Which, by the way, I was going to mention to you that your book has the best titles for each chapter.
Thank you.
There's one called Happy Meal Dating. We'll talk about what is a happy meal dating. Identifying empty calories. We talked a little bit about that right now. And then the buffet line myth. Yeah, they're so clever. Did you come up with those on your own? They're so good.
I did. And that's, I mean, the whole origin of the book kind of just came to me. What do they say in life? You make lemons out of, you make lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah.
You can make lemons out of lemonade. Well,
you might be a magician.
That's right. We can retire.
Yes.
So my idea came just from all of those lemon-like experiences. I had gone through the death of my husband at a young age. And then I was married to someone I considered very controlling. And it took all of my emotional and psychological grit to find the courage to get out after over 13 years of marriage. And when you're at that point, and you look back, Einstein's quote just kept percolating in my mind.
Right. The insanity quote, that if you do the same thing over and over and expect a change or expect something different.
Yeah,
That's
insanity.
the one. Insanity, yeah.
Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I thought, okay, what is going on here? And I write about that in the book. I was like a monkey going from one tree to another looking for bananas, hungry for those figurative or literal bananas. With, I think a lot of women have this of, God forbid you should be on your own. God forbid you should look within for your own answers and your own counsel. Instead, I was looking for self-esteem in men. And that's a recipe for disaster.
And those are empty calories?
It's empty calories. That's a different kind of takeoff from that. Because for different people, empty calories are going to look very different than someone else. You know, an athlete will need lots of carbs, right? But then someone who has, craves meat, their body is telling them it's about listening to what you need. There's going to be seasons in your life where you're like, you know what? I want some empty calories. I need it. And giving yourself that compassion. But what I was doing, I kept looking for sustenance and tasty food, so to speak, in relationships that didn't satiate me, that were only on the surface. because I wasn't going within.
Mm-hmm.
My MO was, please like me. Please like me.
Right,
Oh my
right.
God, you like me? Oh my God.
Yes.
And my first husband had a lot of psychological issues.
Oh,
We
interesting.
connect with people who are very much like us, I believe, energetically.
Okay. I believe that too.
Yeah. So we meet, that's part of our spiritual growth, I believe.
And I think that's the reason why some people have a good relationship in terms like it doesn't need that much work. There's just a connection because the energy level is pretty much similar or the same.
Yeah. And you'll notice a lot of times people meet the right person when they're not trying.
Right.
They're already satiated with themselves. So they go to the grocery store, they go on the outer aisle, they pick the healthy foods, not the empty calories, not because they're trying to be good, but they're already satisfied. You'll hear that all the time. Oh, I wasn't looking and then I met him. Yes. I was finally happy with myself and then I met him. I wasn't trying to get pregnant.
Because there was an openness, right?
Yes.
There was no blockage.
Yeah.
You block yourself. And I think that's one thing that really a lot of women don't understand. And it's not just the mindset and not just the thinking process. It's just how your energy is. If that energy is open, right, and like welcoming, then things just come. I think that's sort of the laws of the universe.
It really is.
Right?
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to write this book, Sheri? Because you mentioned you published in July of 2021.
I think it was 2021 or 2020.
Gosh, it's 2022, so
maybe it was 2020.
Okay.
It's hard to remember.
Okay.
It was when the pandemic really hit hard.
Okay, that was 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to write this book?
So when I was divorced, there's nothing like a death, and a divorce is a form to me of a death of what could have been, what didn't work out.
Yeah.
And you're kind of spiritually on your knees at that point. And at that point, I was finding myself saying, everything that has to do with food, I'm craving connection. I'm hungry for someone.
Okay.
I'm starving for love. All kinds of words were percolating in my head about relationships and that food, this idea of we feed ourselves all the time with our bodies, but we don't even realize we're constantly feeding ourselves with our relationships.
Okay.
And I thought, well, wait a second. I keep doing the same thing, throwing myself at a man, hoping he'll like me. Then when that doesn't work out, God forbid, I clean out my figurative fridge.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
God forbid I go within. Nobody wants to look at the fridge.
Right.
Don't look in there. There's mold. So instead of going in, I just, I would meet another man. And so when this second marriage ended, the first one because of death and the second one because of divorce, I thought, there's something here. There's food for thought. And I'm going to change my paradigm. I'm going to clean out my fridge and get real with myself.
Gotcha.
And so I just started writing about relationships in terms of food. Are relationships toxic? Are they fulfilling me?
And was this a process through therapy? I mean, were you going through therapy at this point where maybe the psychiatrist suggested or the therapist said, hey, maybe write it down and see if you can find some analogy with this scenario that's happening to you? No, this just came to you.
It just came to me.
Okay.
I wasn't in therapy for it.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
No, I had been in therapy for years, but I was not in therapy when I got this idea. I was rock bottom.
Okay.
And it was like you get to this point spiritually where you realize, okay, I have one of two choices. Brene Brown talks about your midlife. In the first half of life, you have this armor on, but you're all shiny and new. So you don't have to deal with it. You don't feel it. But the second half of life, once we get into our 30s, 40s, 50s and on, the armor starts to chip away just because of life happening to us.
Yes.
And you have a choice at that point. You have a crossroads. You can either keep holding on to that armor, even though it's falling apart, and dig your heels in deeper and keep saying the same things that you always said as your body falls apart spiritually, physically, mentally, or you could go into the wilderness and say,
be adventurous.
Yeah, holy crap.
Try something different.
That's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
And so the scariest thing for me was to empty my fridge and be on my own. And I refused to allow myself to date for a year.
Right. And how many times do we, even in a non-relationship, do we go into our fridge and look in our fridge to see what's in there that's gross and junk and old, and you need to just throw it out? Yeah. We don't think about that. And it's sort of like going inside ourselves and looking at, okay, I've been doing this forever. It's the whole idea of insanity, doing the thing over and over.
Exactly.
But I'm just too stubborn to think of or see it, or say, no, it's going to work out for me no matter what. And I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because eventually it'll just happen. And it doesn't because things just didn't change.
Right. It's so much easier to blame it on the external, but we shine from the inside out.
And you mentioned that this is something that can happen in friendships and relationships. So it happens both ways. It could be with your girlfriends, the circle of friends that you have. They could be toxic, empty, Happy Meal relationships.
I'm so
or
glad
they
you
could be
brought that
more
up.
nurturing. Yeah, because that's one thing I really did notice when you said relationship and friendships and how that's correlated. I felt like it made sense.
The prefix, I'm a former English teacher. The prefix "re" in relationships literally means back or again. And we are constantly getting feedback back and again from each other. And they're informing us of who we are.
Okay.
What we like and what we don't like. You could be around someone diabetically sweet and just say, I can't do her.
Yeah.
I can't. And honoring that.
Yeah.
And we tend to think, well, this is an amazing cup of coffee, but if you're lactose intolerant, I don't care how great that coffee is.
Yeah.
It's going to make you sick. So the friendship diet is literally a diet that's unique for each person. You have to figure out, the journey is figuring out
and
what
not
that is
forcing yourself to eat or to drink the coffee, for example, just because that coffee's been there forever and it's been around forever, but you just don't have similar values anymore. You're not leading life the same way. Maybe they are doing something that's against your own systems and the way that you see life. I mean, I think that happens a lot and that changes a lot through time, especially with like long-term friendships, long-term relationships. People evolve. People are supposed to change.
Right. And we tend to resist that.
Right.
Well, this is my diet. This is what I do.
This is what I've been eating ever since the beginning. I'm not going to change. Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't give ourselves enough compassion to
Right.
realize, wait a second, this is a diet, this friendship. When we go for our walks every morning and we've known each other since second grade. But she's been mean to me. She has this bitter sarcasm and I'm sick of it. I don't deserve it.
Why do you think so many people, especially women, I hear it from a lot of women, are okay eating those emotional cookies? You call them emotional cookies and cakes because they feel good for that moment and they're, so yummy. But then later on, you're filled with regret and like shaming and like, I don't know why I ate that cake. I shouldn't have eaten it. Yeah.
It's self-hatred. And and that's why one of my chapters, I talk exactly to that, which is recognizing the bar of soap in your mouth.
Yes.
I had that experience where for years I was
You hated the cilantro, which is a staple in Mexican cuisine in Texas. And here you are in Texas.
and so I put it inward, right? I reflected, there's something wrong with me. Everybody else likes the taste of it.
Yeah.
It's me. And then when that gentleman at Freebird said, oh, no, ma'am, you have a genetic whatever it is that causes it to taste like soap. That's not your fault. The sad fact that I needed to be told it wasn't my fault made me realize, okay, you're not done cleaning out your fridge.
Yeah.
And maybe as long as we're on Earth, we're never done cleaning out our fridge.
No, we'll always fill it up and then look at it again and see if we have to. And it's like a constant checking yourself. I think that's what you say. It's like a self-awareness. You say, well, am I checking myself first? Am I in this relationship or this friendship because it just means I have to be here. Does it make me feel good though? There's a story in there where you said it was something about what was her name? Tracy. I think the name was Tracy. And she was talking about how she was in a date and she couldn't deal with the date anymore. I mean, she was thinking, she kept saying to herself, well, I don't really feel good. But then she was like, but what if this whole situation isn't good? Why am I just, putting this blame on me when it's the whole situation and the whole feeling that I have over this whole date? Why do I insist on staying here and continuing this date that's not going anywhere? Because, we're so afraid of disappointing others.
Absolutely. That's where it's interesting that you bring that up.
That was just such a good story because it made so much sense.
We tend to, as I think more females do this, we are people pleasers. I went on a date not too long ago with a gentleman, and I knew within 1 minute it wasn't going to, immediately. Sometimes you're not sure,
right.
But I knew immediately.
Uh-huh.
And I just nipped it in the butt. I thanked him for his time, and I said, I just didn't feel a romantic connection. And he wrote back again and again saying, wow, you're really evolved. You're like a unicorn. I can't believe you told me that. I wouldn't have done the same.
Oh, okay.
And I think women tend to run around with this sense of responsibility to make the other party happy that men don't seem to carry with them.
Right.
We have this tendency to nurture. Are you okay? Let me get you that emotional cake. Let me serve you. Let me serve you. And we forget to serve ourselves.
We do. It was Tracy McMillan. I just saw it.
Yes.
On her first date and asking herself how she's feeling about herself in this presence. And she's like, it's more about how I feel more than how it feels about me. She's like, I won't starve the friendship. You mentioned don't starve the friendship. It's founded on commitment to yourself.
Everything starts from there.
So do you find, Sheri, that when you're starving, you will just eat anything in your way? And it happens for friendships and relationships? That because you're just so hungry and so desperate for attention or love or affection, that literally the first person that just gives it to you, you're going to go for it.
I think if we're not vigilant, yes.
Yeah.
I think it's like I wrote about in the book, there's two components.
Yeah.
It's that checking in with yourself and then taking action. And we can't always control what we feel. I mean, during the winter break, I had COVID and I couldn't see my kids because I love them and I'm divorced. So they stayed with their dad.
Uh-huh.
And at that point, I wanted a dog. I wanted I felt like
you needed companionship.
Yes, I was starving for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I also checked in with myself and knew that just like the ocean, these emotions pass. And while I can't control how I feel, I can control what I do about it.
How can a woman check herself?
Well, I offer reflections at the end of every chapter.
Every chapter there's a reflection.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And again, that prefix, back or again. You think of a reflection in a mirror. We're always checking ourselves out. How does my butt look? What, do my, is my mascara on right? Whatever it is that an age spot? What the heck's that? And it's the same with if it's a muscle. We go to the gym to exercise, and the first time you do it, you feel like roadkill, and the next day you do a little.
You're getting better and better with time.
Yeah. It's building that muscle. It's walking the walk. There was a TED Talk speaker who talked about motivation. To get motivation, you need to actually just start doing stuff.
Yeah.
If you talk about it, it's not.
I saw the same one. It was action before motivation.
Yes. Just do it.
Yes.
Just do it. Just put yourself out there and, again, go into that wilderness.
And I think there's just a level of fear that I think people are just so uncomfortable. First of all, getting out of their comfort zone is difficult for a lot of people.
Oh, God, yeah.
And then the fear of failure, like fear of being denied.
Oh, yeah.
Or like when you get on a dating site. And so a lot of women tell me, well, it's so scary to get on a dating site because there's so little men for all the women that are out there. The percentages are so skewed that there's just so little men that the women are all kind of heading towards the same guy over and over and over. And so that person is just always kind of flattered that there's always women after him. And so he never feels a commitment, a need to commit to any woman, basically. So they're in a conundrum, and single women are in that predicament right now, because I think a lot of them are just searching for that life partner.
Right.
And a lot of men are just searching for the moment.
But I think there are those needle in the haystacks. I really do. I recently went on a couple of dates with a gentleman, and it was just at that time, if we talk about going out of our comfort zone, when I was writing this book, going out of my comfort zone meant being on my own. God forbid, right? So I cleaned out that fridge. I didn't go out with anyone, and I just worked on myself. And what that meant was nurturing those relationships, including myself. That habit, building that muscle. What do I want? What do I want? I had a very controlling relationship where it was never asked, what do you want?
Wow.
So that became my MO for a good year. You build that muscle. And that doesn't mean I wasn't uncomfortable. I was very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Now, here's the interesting part. Years later, because I divorced in 2015, and I just shared this with the gentleman I went on the second date with that I really like. I just shared this with him last weekend. I said, now I go towards what's uncomfortable. I go towards what's vulnerable, because we're all going to die. We're all going to die. No one's getting out of here alive. And I rather live, as Brene Brown says, bravely, daring greatly, than live safely, but dying a little bit every moment. And so I told him, now going towards the discomfort, my new discomfort is actually the opposite. It's actually being in a relationship. I have gotten so good at unclogging toilets on my own and hammering pictures up evenly. Independence, hear me roar. I make my own money. No one's telling me what to wear. My ex-husband told me what to wear. He told me what to eat.
So do you even have a paradigm of what a good relationship looks like and what it feels like, so that when you do enter that, do you know that that's good and satisfying? It's a filet mignon that's there for you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Can you recognize that, or do you start to feel imposter syndrome, where you feel like you don't deserve this beautiful, wonderful relationship? This man is too good for me.
No. I don't feel that way anymore.
Good. So it's part of the working and the getting rid of the stuff in the refrigerator.
Absolutely. And it was interesting because I was vulnerable. He was vulnerable too. He said, you want to know something? He told me two things. He said, I want a relationship like the Reagans had. And I said, what does that mean? He said, they had each other's back.
Yes.
And then when I told him about my discomfort with actually being in a relationship. Because I've gotten so good at, I've got this, I've got everything.
Yeah.
He agreed with me. He said, I'm in the same exact place. I don't know how to do this. I don't know what I'm doing, but, and I've gotten so used to being on my own as well. And so it was like this emotional sigh that came out between us. Like we were both looking at our figurative empty fridges going, now what? And when you can be open with someone and say, hey, there's no rule here. There's no paradigm.
Yes.
We're going to figure this out, and it's going to be ever evolving.
And you don't need to have all the answers now. Let's just go step by step, basically, without the plan. Just
no plan. We're just going to see and be willing to know that you might get hurt. There are no guarantees, but at least you have that muscle of checking in with your fridge.
So one of the questions that I have is, if you had a McDonald's relationship or a Taco Bell relationship, can you say that you can, like, it satiates you, it makes you feel good for those moments? You feel, good, because that's what that food is designed to do. It's supposed to make you feel like you want more of it. That's how it's designed. That's what the chefs at those places do with that. And then find that you'll regret it. How can you motivate the young women or the people out there, or whoever reads your book, like when they read your book, to use those lessons to get out of that pattern of just eating fast food all the time?
Just to remind themselves to be self-compassionate. Be kind to yourself. Talk to yourself. This is an exercise I've done a lot of.
Okay.
You write a letter to your highest yourself or from yourself to your childhood self. You've got this.
Yeah.
I'm with you right now.
I love that.
I adore you. And
self-talk.
That's
compassionate self-talk.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. And I would also recommend, I've done this, you write a letter to the universe of what you want in another partner.
Yeah.
And just leave it and know it's already happened, because you can refer back to that letter, the list to the universe, and see if that person is, true to you. And again, it's different for everyone. I want someone personally who is going to support me emotionally, who's going to say, you've got this. I believe in you. Who's going to be a cheerleader and wants me to be his cheerleader.
Yeah.
But doesn't try to change me and
accepts
control me, accepts my flaws. Because I have flaws. We all have flaws.
Right.
And I think somebody has to also earn your vulnerability. I shared what I shared on that date.
That is such a good quote. You need to write that down 1,000 times. Somebody needs to earn your vulnerability, because we share too much too soon and they haven't earned it. And then we're wondering why they step on our hearts. Yeah. Because we open it too quickly, too soon.
Yeah.
They didn't earn it.
They didn't earn it. What I shared on that date, on that second date, was literally, hey, this is where I am. And this is a big deal for me.
He earned your vulnerability, though, at 2 dates?
No. That's the oxymoron.
Okay.
I was vulnerable with him in terms of what I wanted to share.
Okay.
I knew that I needed to tell him that because I didn't want to waste my time or his. So, hey, you need to know this. I am so comfortable being on my own. And for me to not stay on this trajectory, it's going to be a slow moving ship.
Right.
And that was more of a, now you know. And he said the same thing, which makes me want to open up more, that we're going slowly. But no, am I going to tell him about, something that
more personal? No, that's definitely something that waits
to earn.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. So it's in small parts, but you felt comfortable enough to share as far as you've shared with him.
Yes. Yeah. And that was because of all the years I've been checking in with myself. I was listening to him on the date. I was watching how he treated the waitress. I listened to how he talked about his children and how he talked about he spends his free time helping out in a foster home for kids.
It's really important that you mention that as well. And guys, listeners, please, this is such an important part of this, because sometimes we're overlooking those little idiosyncrasies because we're so desperate to have somebody or be satiated by this hunger of love that we don't pay attention to a lot of those little signs and a lot of little ways that they, for example, how they behave around others, how they treat other people, how they speak about others. And if you're paying attention to those things, they will tell you a lot about themselves. Yeah. That's one thing my husband and I always do, because whenever he has like a business meeting, he always brings me along, because he's like, you're so good at observing all those things that when I'm speaking, I'm not looking at. But he's like, you're looking at the way he speaks. You're looking at the way he talks to the people around him. He talks, you look at how he's dressed. He's like, you even look at like what he's wearing. Like so he always like trusts my judgment. And I think I've been like at 100% when I come around. I'm like, that guy is shady. Do not do business with that guy. He is just not good. And it ultimately turns out that the guy was not good.
Because you haven't.
But I've learned to read,
Yes.
To read people.
We don't give ourselves enough credit.
Yeah.
And I think young women especially, they
and trusting their guts too. Yeah. I think they deny themselves that opportunity to trust their gut instinct. Mm-hmm. I think they feel like if they're trusting it too much, they're not giving themselves an opportunity to be adventurous enough. But your gut is something very powerful. Yeah. It's extremely powerful, and it's meant to check you.
Absolutely.
It's not meant to be denied. It's supposed to check you.
That's your staple in the fridge of your soul. That's you need that more than anything.
Yes, yeah. And even with my sons, when I ask them questions and sometimes they're doing something, I'm like, well, how do you feel about that? Like, where in your tummy, does it feel good or does it feel like, like you have, but like you feel nausea?
Yes.
And that in itself is like an indicator for them that something isn't right. Something is not good.
You're such a good mom.
You
That's
know?
the best
And
thing. That's the best. It's just listen to your body. Listen to how you feel.
Do you think that social media adds to the pressure of like us, needing to satiate this hunger on a constant basis? I mean, couple goals, hashtag couples, hashtag love, hashtag Valentine's Day. I mean, there's like a saturation of that, isn't there?
Absolutely. I just wrote a blog post about this.
Oh, good.
What's love got to do with it?
I need to go read it.
It's on my site.
Yes.
Sheri-Jacobs.com. It's today's post. And I write about why we get nauseous on this never-ending diet of retail therapy and, every kiss begins with K.
Yes.
It's
the whole marketing behind it is just insane.
And that what we tend to not realize, because I was trying to think, like I was going into my whole food for thought, food for the soul, like why does it make me want to vomit? Whether I'm in a relationship or not, why am I like wanting to, throw my my phone at the Hallmark channel?
I feel the same way about Christmas because it's too much. And I feel like you're trying to sell Christmas to me too damn much so that I buy. Right? So Valentine's is the same thing.
Yes. And it's really the Happy Meal dating that they're offering.
Yes.
It's all outer manifestations. And I remember, and I'm going to speak to this right now, when my first husband and I were newlyweds. We were at a dance club, and the woman came over to the dance club with flowers. She was selling roses. Do you remember back in those days? We went to now they don't go to nightclubs.
Yes, and she would walk around table to table. Yes.
And again, my husband passed, and I love him dearly, and I always will. But he, back then, I was in my early 20s, and I wasn't a reflection. I wasn't self-reflecting at all. And she came up to me and she said to my husband, do you want to buy the girl a rose? And he's like, no, it's good. And, now at my age, I'd be like, of course not. That's so stupid. Like, I don't need a rose. But back then I took it to heart. I said, "What you don't think I'm worthy of a rose?" And it's so infantile. It's it's all marketing. You know how I know he loved me? Because he'd make me dinner when I'd come home from work. He did the laundry. He told me that I made him so happy. That's your rose. But when we look externally for things, you're going to end up starving because that stuff doesn't last. And I ask the listeners, when you look back on your life, whether you're 20 listening to this or 70, when you look back on your life, think about the moments that lit you up from within, whether it was with a friendship, a parent, a lover. It doesn't really matter. The moments that really fed you, had nothing to do with the figurative rose that you could buy at a nightclub. It was the moments that said, you matter.
Yes.
That's what we're hungry for. We're hungry to know we matter. That's the stuff that satiates, not the shiny stuff. And
definitely not those social media postings.
No, they're so empty. And I see these beautiful girls posting, and I'm like, you are so worthy. You're so beautiful. Don't give it away.
Yeah. That I think there's a pressure that's so intense, especially in like the younger generations, that they still haven't learned. It takes some wisdom to get to the point where you are now, where that rose really is insignificant, considering you come home to a nice dinner from him. But I think there's a level of wisdom that needs to come with years of experience and just, experiences and relationships. And so realizing that now I'm 46 and I'll look back at them and I'm like, oh, but I can't say anything. I really shouldn't. It's really not my place because they're going to learn along the way on their own terms and at their own path. And by the way, who am I? Like, why am I even like, interested in that? That person is leading their life the way they want to lead their life. That's totally fine too. And so for me, like one thing that I just wanted to mention is with this book, I think also, and I just thought about this just now, it's another good way of like maybe a subtle way of telling a friend you are in a junk relationship. You need to read this book because I think you'll identify this, because sometimes we're so afraid to tell our friends that they're being, misused, they're being abused, mental, physical, emotional abuse. But we're so afraid to tell people.
We don't want to hurt. We're afraid to rock the boat.
We're so afraid. But you see it from the outside looking in, and you know it, and you can see it, and you can feel it, when you walk into their relationship, and you know that that's happening. So maybe this would be a great way for you to say, hey, I just found this book. Yes. I think you'll like it. Because I really think it has like some good ways for you to kind of become more self-aware and reflect on your own personal life, not just your relationships, but your friendships, your friendships with yourself, your own relationship with you, with who you are.
And you'll never starve when you focus on yourself. You'll have the best Valentine's Day if you treat yourself and realize you are the sweetheart. Yeah. We have a hard time accepting that.
Well, because I think there's also a low self-esteem.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of conditioning that happens in the world, and social media has a lot to do with that as well. There's so much conditioning to not appreciate ourselves because it's selfish or because it looks like you're just too full of yourself.
Yeah. And we're all facades. That's the thing.
Right.
How often do you get together with a friend and you've seen her Facebook post and it looks like she's having an amazing time and you find out behind the scenes that the couple had a fight.
Yeah.
And they found out their daughter is doing drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of people just don't want to put, and I don't know if anybody should be putting their dirty laundry out there for everybody to know, but it's also
it's keeping up. I think of a duck with, on the surface everything looks smooth, but you don't know what's
little
going
feet under the water, like
and it's just like stop posting how perfect your life is and just enjoy the fresh air.
I think there's a little bit of self-fulfilling prophecy that's going on. I think they want it to be like that so bad that if they force it or make it happen over and over and over, that it'll eventually become that way. And it doesn't, obviously, because that's not how things work. But they want it to be so badly.
I know.
Like the other, housewife down the street, or like the other friend who has the perfect life and the perfect marriage and the perfect, everything. But yet you really don't know anything about it. But you yourself, you're trying over here so hard to catch up and be, comparing yourself to those people.
And what if, and that's where I ask the listeners to dare themselves to say, what if today I just didn't care?
Yeah.
What if I didn't care? What would happen? How would you live differently? We prescribe ourselves the same diet all the time.
Yeah.
And then we wonder why we're in the situations.
Why we're so fat.
Why we're so fat.
Quote unquote fat. Quote unquote fat. Yeah. But that's true. That's true because, as a high schooler, I was in a really terrible relationship. It was awful. And my dad sat me down one day and he's like, do you realize that you're eating McDonald's every day when you could be having a nice steak dinner?
Did you really say that?
Yeah.
Maybe I got the idea of this book from your dad.
No, my dad is too funny because he just I think he mentioned to me something like, what are your plans with this guy? I mean, you're graduating from college and he hasn't done anything with this life and he's still out there trying to figure himself out. And you're over here so smart and so pretty. You haven't even seen the world yet. What are you doing? And he was like, so for him, it was like, you're not eating good food when you could be eating way better. And I think I just took that to heart and I broke up with the guy. And it was the biggest thing and the best thing I ever did. And I'm glad my dad pointed out, hey, look, you need to read this book, The Friendship Diet. You're eating crap, girl. You're getting toxic.
It does make you toxic. And if you don't think it is, just it manifests in different forms. Yeah, maybe your cholesterol won't go up or you won't get diabetes, but maybe, you'll develop anxiety, or maybe you'll have back problems. The body and mind are very connected. And I noticed when I was married, I had a lot of health issues that suddenly went away.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. In my marriage, I felt like I was always on my knees in a way. Mm-hmm. And once I left, I went to 2 different knee surgeons, and they said, "Yeah, you've torn your meniscus. It's like Swiss cheese." And I remember thinking of that connection of mind and body. I also kept getting UTIs that I no longer get. And I read Dr. Christian Northrup's book that the body manifests what you're feeling. And I was literally pissed off all the time. And I think a lot of women are pissed off, but they repress it, and it comes out in different ways.
Ultimately, it takes a toll on your health.
Yeah.
And absolutely. Your mental health and your physical health.
Yeah. And if anyone listening has kids or wants to have kids, you want to be that parent that has self-esteem, because guess what? Your kids are watching everything.
I love that. That's beautiful. So let's end with this key nugget that I got from your book that to me, it was like, this is the key nugget from the book because it really resonated with me. When we remove the comforting fat of denial and build a dish made of authenticity and kindness, always beginning with ourselves first, we will never experience emotional malnutrition. Yeah. Wow. I love that.
Thank you.
I love that. And I think when I read that, I said, that is the nugget right there, because you're absolutely correct. It's comforting, but we're denying ourselves in that comfort.
We are. And I want to encourage the listeners to have fun with yourself. Get out your 5-year-old kid. She or he is in there. And when you start to feel lonely, say, well, what can I do now? Instead of what can I do? What can I do now? Oh, my God. You know who I haven't spoken to? So-and-so. Let me give him a call. What can I do now? I need a pedicure. I'm going to give myself a pedicure.
Yeah.
When you shift the perspective, and you have to have humor, when you shift the perspective to what satisfies you as opposed to what satisfies someone else,
right?
You're happy. And as we talked about at the start of this conversation, the energy shifts, and so your life shifts.
I love it. Sheri, thank you so much for being such a wonderful guest on my podcast. My listeners know that I always try to bring new perspectives to them, and that they cannot craft the life they wish to live if they don't have the right tools. So I think this book is an amazing tool. I think it's a good way, and I guess for me, to self-reflect as well. Because I am in a really happy marriage, but I do self-reflect, and I know that I have to look at what's not working as well, and what can I do to better that as well. So I love that. I think it's so important and so wonderful for us to be able to do those things and clean out the refrigerator as many times as we need to. I think, we forget to do that. So listeners, if you're looking to get a gift, I think this is a perfect gift. And where can they find your book, Sheri?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. You can buy it on my website. It's on Kobo. My publisher has a ton of places where you could buy it. I have to work on my marketing skills. But yes, you can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere. So.
Yeah, or you can also get it on Kindle. I got it on the Kindle as well, and it was great. And also, let's follow Sheri at Sheri Jacobs Author. Jacobs Author. Sheri, Cheri.
Oh, Sheri.
SH. See, I need my glasses.
Oh, I didn't put them on. I left mine in the car.
So I'm over here guessing what letter that is. Let me put them on. Okay. S-E.
Oh, no.
S-H. Why don't you do it? Why don't you do it? You know your own handle.
On Instagram. And you can follow me on Instagram, and you can tell I'm not media savvy. I'm usually I'm just writing. I prefer good communication, but every once in a while I do get on social media, and it's at Sheri Jacobs, Jacobs, author. That's awesome. My handle. That's the term.
Yay.
I'm so hip.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.